Today I'm sitting down with Randall Cagle, who's a man of many talents that include being a pastor of a church, a fireman, and a passionate grower. In my search to speak to human service leaders, I was not thinking of a pastor or a fireman, but Randall, a friend of 25 plus years, reached out to me to be on the show. We talk about how stories in the Bible are based from agricultural metaphors and how that leads to how he nurtures his congregation. I think you will really enjoy what Randall has to share.
When you first sent out that about cultivate, because I've been hearing about cultivation all my life with my dad. We had an old horse-drawn plow that was called a cultivator and implement the plow. It had 3 different tines, and you could put different plows on it or wings or whatever, and that'd be the last thing that we did was run around it with a cultivator. And so that word cultivate got me going. So this is the way I study when I get a word on my mind and I look up the definition. Because cultivate, I tell you, you're talking about a biblical term. It is very, I don't know what dictionary this come out of, but it says to intentionally care for, nurture, and develop, both in agriculture and spiritual content. In Genesis 2:15, when God created everything, he put Adam in the garden, and he said in 2:15 to dress it and keep it. And that word dress in Hebrew means to cultivate. So here he put Adam in the middle of the garden. Everything was grown. You know, there's no question which come first, the chicken or the egg. The chicken was there first. The plants were full grown when he got them, but he says he put them in there to dress it and keep it. And then that word dress means to grow, and then getting into the business part, stewardship and responsibility. Cultivate, stewardship and responsibility. And then this is the big one, perseverance. Long-term, repetitive patience and steady, continued and effort. And then the last one was partnership. And I thought that word,
there's a lot to go on.
To dress it means, you know, what you're trying to do in a business way, what ministers are trying to do with their congregation. You know, my daddy's favorite terms, especially after he got old, was he'd preach and he'd use the word patience. And he says, I never liked any of the dictionaries. He said, my definition of patience is long, hard, untiring effort. Because you go out here and plant, you don't plant today and reap tomorrow.
There's a lot going on.
And so much in the Bible is talking about agriculture. You know, the metaphors of agriculture in the Bible from cover to cover.
It's what people knew. It was a language that described it.
I told him at church Sunday, I said, you have to explain it now in detail, because a lot of young people don't have a clue what you're talking about when you're talking about the Levitical laws of Moses was the law of sowing and reaping. You know, and all of it has to do with production. You can plant one seed, and look what you're going to reap off that one seed.
That one seed could be 100 seeds.
It's like 1 grain of corn, even if it just produces 1 ear of corn, what you're producing, about 150, 200 kernels. And if you save that for next year, and then you got to protect your seed through the winter. I mean, it's a whole.
And that's that long-term thing. Yeah, I find that when you said patience, did you say perseverance?
Yeah.
It's definitely a trait you need to have, the farm or garden, is to have that constant care. That you can ruin the whole crop if you forget to water it after a couple of days. You know, if you need to water like every other day, and then you go like, well, this week I'm not going to water, and there's no plant, and there's no lettuce after that. So it's things that nature won't let you cheat and say, well, I'm just not going to do it. You have to do it. And I think with care, with people, it's a constant thing, because we're always taking 2 steps forward, 1 step backward. And so we have to constantly provide support, care for people. I know as a pastor, you've got to do that. People need to continue to be nurtured, right? And you're nurturing them with the word and giving them hope and a responsibility of what it is to be human, to care for.
Yeah. You don't become a full-grown Christian after the first day.
It's a process.
And going back, I was a retired fireman, and when I retired from the fire department, I was station captain, and I always enjoyed getting the rookie firemen out of rookie school, especially the younger the better. And then I could do kind of what you've done to those apple trees.
You can shake them. Yeah.
You got to be. And the whole thing is that they would produce fruit. And that's what the Bible teaches. We want fruit producing people. And it took a while for me to learn this spiritually about when it's talking about producing fruit. The fruit that you get off of those English peas right there, those English peas are not for that plant.
For the next generation?
It's for somebody else. So if we're producing fruit, we want to hoard the fruit so many times to us. That fruit's to be used.
It's given, yeah. Yeah,
So-
I'd never thought of it that way.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, all this that you've got here, those blueberries, I remember them blueberries having to be careful weed eating around those blueberries. And you look at them now. But you get out here and you pick that fruit when it's ripe enough that it's going to be used. It's not used for that plant anymore once it produces fruit.
That's a good way to look at it. It's like these plants are giving. They need some nurturing, but they want to give back. They give back.
I don't like the term giving back.
Why is that?
We're giving forward.
Giving forward.
You know, I hear it all the time. You know, you hear what they're doing is giving forward. These plants are not giving back. These people that's eating their fruit, they give them nothing. So we're giving forward. And that's
Not
what
expecting it back.
Right. So I just love that term better. We're
a good way
giving
to look at it.
forward. Experience at our church on Birmingham Road back in 2020 when that tropical storm Zeta come through, blew that tree of our fellowship building, destroyed it. And I stood out there and cried like a baby.
Yeah.
What are we going to do?
And
then you go in that building right now and see we got a brand new building and we're using it every week and it's been a blessing. And somebody came up to me afterwards and said, you know, you and the church, y'all going to bounce back. And it just dawned on me, no, we're going to bounce forward. We ain't going backwards. We're going forward. And
to something new.
that was a blessing. This big red oak tree destroyed the building and the Lord blessed us with a brand new building.
It's funny how those situations occur. Out by the driveway, we had a massive oak tree fall over. I'm going out there with a little tiny electric chainsaw, starting to cut pieces apart, and then someone stops by and says, "Can I help you?" "Sure." And then two other people, "Can I help you?" "Oh, I've got an excavator. I've got a tractor that can pull this stuff out." Something that would have taken me 4 weekends ended up getting done in 3 hours by people seeing an opportunity to help. It's not as though they were expecting that I'm going to do something for them. They just wanted to help.
And that's, you know, that's the whole thing in life, you know, what are we doing forward? We can't sit still because that's not going forward. That's that perseverance. You know, there's an old saying around the church, a lot of people, they'll become Christian. They want to sit on the stool and do nothing. Well, you know, the Lord saved my soul. I wait for him.
You're a part of it. You're a part of this process.
They start moving forward.
When did that dawn on you, going from the concept of giving back to giving forward? Has that always been?
When that person said, y'all going to bounce back from this, and no, we're going to bounce forward.
Yeah.
And it goes with the church and with the fire department, getting those new rookies in there. They've just come from training. They've been trained. I know how they've been trained. Now I can prune them, but when that alarm goes off, they're going right in the fire. And that's what I'd always tell them, guys. When that alarm goes off, we got to go. When you get in there, do what you've been trained to do. And if you mess up a little bit, we'll take care of it. But just do something. Don't get in there and do nothing.
We learn from our failures, but we have to try.
People that's working under you, you turn them on the task to do something, and then they say, you know, I really screwed this up. No, you could fix it.
Yeah.
You might have to have a talk with them, but it ain't going to be that bad.
Yeah.
That's what being a supervisor or a manager or a pastor or a deacon or a mama or a daddy.
Help that person learn. Part of that is learning is things do get messed up or not done exactly the way you want it, but you want the intention of the person caring about what they're doing, showing that they're going to try. And then whatever fails, then we learn from that. And I get that in the garden all the time. And sometimes I relearn lessons too. Do the same thing I shouldn't do.
You've killed plants out here.
Yeah,
well, I'm going to put another one right in there. We're going to keep on going.
So what other lessons in the garden have informed you in pastoral care?
One that I think about, in our Bible study, we've been studying through the book of Mark. I love the parables. And we just got through this week the parable of the sower. Some was 30, 50, and 100 fold, it said. But then you go here to another parable. The householders planted the field. And the Bible says it just exactly like this. While the man slept, the enemy came and planted weeds. And then once he seen that the weeds was coming up and they were growing right alongside, and you've seen it out here in the garden, when the weeds get too bad and you start trying to pull up the weeds, you'll pull up the good plants with it. Right. And the Bible says, let them grow up together. And then when it comes to harvest time, you get your harvest off of, then you whack and burn them. So, but the whole thing is, while men slept.
Where you didn't do the cultivating, you didn't take care of it.
You wouldn't want
tiny weed. I learned that all the time, that, I can spend an hour cultivating once a week, or I can wait and spend 20 hours weeding and still creating a problem. Like you say, pulling up the good with the bad, or you're pulling something that has seeds, spreads more seeds, so you get that weed coming next year. So taking care of things early is definitely
that old
important.
saying, the ounce of prevention better than a pound of cure.
Yeah, that explains it well.
And that's in every part of life. Let's be vigilant, always looking. And that's, of course, I have to think about why we have the weeds. And this is a very spiritual thing. When Adam and Eve was put in the garden, they didn't have weeds until they broke God's law. And when they sinned, and then he says, now, this is one of the curses you will have, that you're going to have weeds and you're going to work by the sweat of your brow. And so when you're out here working by the sweat of your brow, we can thank our father Adam.
This could be paradise.
Well, one day it will be.
Yeah, it's interesting how life is about things not being perfect, that us making decisions to be intentional about, we want to have a relationship. It's one thing that God teaches us is he always comes back for that relationship. Life is richer with relationship, and the things that you do with pastoring and helping grow young men into firemen, that's about nurturing, that's about caring, and that's what makes life worth living. You've seen some of these dystopian movies where people live by themselves, or they're like the world, everybody's gone except them, and how despairing that is, how sad that is. It's great to have people to experience life with. I appreciate you sharing your thoughts and wisdom you've learned through life and relationship with people, caring for people.
That wisdom, you said, that's something that you have to learn from. And I try to tell the young people, talk to the older folks. They've already experienced. Of course, your children, my children, they went to school together and was buddies and all like that. But how many times that we talk to our children because we've seen a train wreck coming in their life, and you know what? We warned them about it, and sometimes, the train wreck has to.
They've got to learn through failure, as we were saying before. that I think that's part of life. It's not real until we experience it ourselves.
When the train wreck comes, we need to be there.
We don't create the train wreck for them, but we're there for them when that train wreck happens.
And that's in your business with your human resources. We don't want the train wreck to happen, but when it does, we'll be right there with you. Let's keep it from happening. I know my children, there'll be some more, but I'm glad they've kind of got over one hump anyway with some of that.
It's hard to see that. Our kids struggling through life. It's part of life.
Goodness gracious.
Thanks, Randall. Appreciate you coming out and just geeking out in the garden a little bit. You're going to be probably my most knowledgeable gardening guest that I have. Thank you, Randall.
Thank you for inviting me. I mean, we could sit over here and talk for hours.